Okay. Before we go a little into emptiness, we need, what we mentioned yesterday was, again, two questions. The first one is, do things exist? The first question. Answer is yes. Then the second question is, do things exist objectively? Then the answer is no. Okay, this is what we learned. So with this, if things exist objectively, if things exist subjectively, if things exist subjectively, if things don't exist objectively, what do you mean by things existing subjectively? So yesterday again we learned the four pairs, the subjective existence as opposed to objective existence, and dependent the existence as opposed to independent existence, and then what else? Conventional existence as opposed to ultimate existence, and then deceptive existence as opposed to true existence. Very good. Okay, so this is what we have learned. Now, today we are going to learn one thing which is so important. Say many people, there's a tendency, not only the people who are today, but the many who are considered, who are actually respected as scholars and are also practitioners. They fall into the extremes. Emptiness, they understood emptiness not properly, so therefore they go into the extremes. Extremes, there are two extremes. One is extreme of nihilism and other one is extreme of absolutism. Absolutism and nihilism too. So the point is, we have how do we understand that emptiness means dependent origination, and how dependent origination means the middle way. That emptiness doesn't mean nihilism, emptiness doesn't mean absolutism. So for that matter, what we need to know is two things. One is how emptiness is to be equated with dependent origination, and how dependent origination is to be equated with middle way. So therefore, emptiness by default will be seen as the middle way rather than falling into extremes. The first part, emptiness means dependent origination. For this, we need to know, this is very important, don't forget it. Emptiness, how we can see emptiness in the light of dependent origination. Emptiness to be seen in the light of dependent origination for 5 points, out of 5 points. For the 5 points, we should see how emptiness means dependent origination. Well, the first one is emptiness, first is emptiness. So the second point, emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. Emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Number 2, emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. Number 2 is what? Emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. Number 2. Number 3, emptiness of independent existence means, number 3, nothing exists independently. Okay, see if you agree with what I'm saying. First, emptiness is a short form. It's not just emptiness, nothingness. Emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. For example, we speak about WHO. What is WHO? World Health Organization. WHO is who, right? Who? But we don't read it as who, we read it as the World Health Organization. It's a short form of World Health Organization. Although it is written at WHO, who, but it's a short form of World Health Organization. Likewise, emptiness is a short form of emptiness of independent existence. So number 1 is emptiness. Number 2 is emptiness of independent existence. Number 3, emptiness of independent existence means nothing exists independently. Number 3, nothing exists independently. Nothing exists independently means everything exists by dependence. Very good. Everything exists by dependence. This is number 4. Because everything is dependently existent, everything is dependently originated. So therefore, emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. Emptiness means dependent origination. Okay, let me say this again. Point number 1 is emptiness. Point number 2 is short form of emptiness of independent existence. Point number 3, nothing exists independently. Number 4, everything exists by dependence. Number 5, therefore everything is dependent originated. So this is how emptiness is the meaning of dependent origination. It is not the meaning of nothingness. Number 1. So this first part is finished. Now second part, dependent origination. Emptiness, which means dependent origination, and dependent origination means the middle way. How dependent origination means the middle way? Okay, this again we have to learn. Dependent origination has 2 sides: dependence and origination. Dependence. When we say dependence, what is the opposite of dependence? Independence. When we say dependence, we reject independence. Independence and absolutism, these two mean the same. So when you say dependence, you are rejecting the extreme of absolutism. And what's the second part? Origination, right? Dependent and origination. Dependent origination. Origination means something comes into origination, something comes into existence. What is the opposite of existence? Non-existence. Non-existence, non-existence, nihilism. So when you say origination, it rejects the extreme of nihilism. So we have dependent origination. Dependence, it rejects the extreme of absolutism. Origination, it rejects the extreme of nihilism. Bringing them together, combining the two together, dependent origination rejects the 2 extremes. Rejecting the 2 extremes is following the middle way. So therefore, dependent origination is the meaning of middle way. Once you know this, now 2 things. You know, dependent origination means, emptiness means dependent origination, and dependent origination means the middle way. So from this we come to realize that emptiness means the middle way. This is extremely important. Extremely important. Okay. Now with this, once you see, of course, well, what we're doing is more like, say, just a synopsis or the summary, or like a summary of what emptiness is, and with more extensive learning, reflection. And one book that I may suggest you, for emptiness would be, of course, with the emptiness, always read standard books. For emptiness, it's so important. Read very standard books, because when we don't have any understanding of what emptiness is, Then it is like you become like a piece of white cloth. When the white cloth, the first dye, the color that you give to the first color that you give to the cloth, that determines later on. First, if you give a very dull color to the white cloth, and later on you want to give a good color, it's not possible because it's already tainted. So therefore, with the emptiness experience, the books that you first you depend on, the books must be very standard books. Don't just read any books written by any author, right? This is extremely important. Why I'm saying this is that bodhicitta is fine. For bodhicitta, you can read any book. It doesn't matter. So, say even if one book is not that powerful, one book may not be as, say, the rational, and the meaning may be a little tilted. It cannot really affect you so much. You read that, you go, okay, this means like this, and then you may even employ to put them into your practice. And later on, when you meet with other books which are more standard, very standard books, you'll see that, okay, now this is the part which was missing in the first one. Whereas with emptiness, we are going into a very different direction, where the first one will give you whatever imprint laid by the first one. This will be well ingrained in you, and the later on to get to the correct one is very difficult. So therefore, it's very important to read the very authentic books on emptiness. The one book that I would suggest is the book by His Holiness, How to See Yourself as You Really Are. How to See Yourself as You Really Are on emptiness. Okay, this is extremely important. Emptiness. How to see yourself. How to see yourself as you really are. I think that is translated in Hebrew. It's already there. Very good. Then, once you are quite familiar with some of these books, then I would suggest you to study Acharya Chandrakirti's text, Entry into the Middle Way. The author, Acharya Chandrakirti. His book, Entry into the Middle Way. Entry into the Middle Way. Okay, this book, you have to study this. Okay, if you're interested, then the full teaching, they are all available in English, with materials, textbook, all available from bodhiwisdom.org. bodhiwisdom.org. So there, all these things are available. You can study from there. And then, of course, we have Tibet House. We have a very good program. Some of you already know about it. Now in the master's course, but this is not what is happening every year. It happens once in a while, maybe after 2 years, after 4 years, once after 4 years, once after 3 years, and so forth. So there's not a regular program, but something which is a precursor to this program, something which is like a prerequisite for this program, is a Nalanda diploma course. 1 year Nalanda diploma course, and the master's course is for 4 years. And what's a precursor to this is 1 year diploma course. And so all these what we are studying, they have been taught in detail in these courses. So you can also apply for that Nalanda diploma course. If you're interested, you can write to the office at tibethouse.in. Office at tibethouse.in. So there, if you write, then you can easily enroll there. Okay, there's so many benefits to this. Okay. Now with this, what I'd like to share with you is that, now from this what we learned is emptiness and dependent origination. And after studying about emptiness on the basis of dependent origination, the Lama Tsongkhapa, he gave extremely important advice pertaining to emptiness and dependent origination. From what we have learned thus far, although we have not learned fully, what we have learned thus far is that if we understand emptiness, we understand the subjectivity of things. If we understand subjectivity of things, then like one waking up from the dream, waking up from the sleep, from the nightmare in the dream. You wake up and the nightmare stops. Likewise, you see emptiness and all the nightmare of samsara stops. So this is what we have learned. If this were the case, then Lama Tsongkhapa gave very important advice. The advice that he gave is that pertaining to how we can be associated, how we can be connected, how we can be connected with the teaching on emptiness in the future lives. This is what Lama Tsongkhapa advised. So what he said is that the emptiness and dependent origination, we have learned this. Emptiness and dependent origination, these two are the two sides of the same coin. But dependent origination can be understood on three different levels. Dependent origination can be understood on three different levels. Whereas emptiness is the very subtle emptiness. And whereas if you understand emptiness, this is the final remedy to eradicate all our mental defilements. And dependent origination, because it has three different steps, three different levels, so these they are like stepping stones. The understanding of dependent origination is like the stepping stones to get to emptiness. So the advice given was that in this life, after understanding what dependent origination is, after understanding what emptiness is, after understanding how these two are the two sides of the same coin, in this life, it is our job that we try to link the two understanding, dependent origination and emptiness, as much as we can, to the extent that anytime you see dependent origination, you must be able to relate this to emptiness. Say, because of this aircon and because of this fan, we don't feel the heat, right? By dependence on these two things, we don't feel the heat, right? So, feeling the cool sensation is originated by dependence on the fan and the aircon, dependent origination. So whenever you see any form of dependent origination, try to link this with emptiness. Since the cool feeling that we have is originated by dependence on these two things, therefore the cool sensation does not exist independently. It is empty of independent existence. So anything to do with anything that you've experienced of dependent origination, you are advised to link this to the understanding of emptiness. Okay, so what's the benefit? The benefit is that, okay, how many of you in your life, let's say that, say you hear some sound or you smell something, this reminds you of your very young ages, your childhood, some smell or some taste or some sound or some music, some songs. Instantly it retrieves a very pleasant feeling or whatever feeling that you had during childhood, say like age 3, 4, 5, 6. Did such things happen to you? Raise hands. Okay, most of us. It never happened, raise hands. Okay, it happened to everyone. Okay, that's good then. Then that's easy. For example, in my case, I remember, okay, there are a few things in my case. I will share with you one thing. Say, I lost my mother when I was 5 years old, right? And then my father and the 3 siblings, including myself, we moved to Dharamsala, to India, after having lost the mother. So, age 5, then age 6, age 7, age 8, I think age 9, age 8, age 9. Okay, for about 3 or 4 years, this young boy simply cut off from the mother, of course, cut off from the mother, and then even if it was suddenly brought him into a very different environment, then the memory simply subsided. The memory of the mother. Then in the school. In the school, the school teacher, there was the inter-class song competition. Inter-class Tibetan song competition. And our Tibetan teacher, he taught us a song. That song was a very primitive, very simple folk song, village song. And this song, the moment our teacher started to sing this song, I could not control my tears. What happened to this young boy? The memory of being with the mother was retrieved. Because this was the same song which my mother used to sing, and in a very remote place where the mother did not have any work to do. Her job is just to take care of the 3 children, that's it. And I'm the youngest, so I got the privilege of being in the center. Right? And she used to sing the song. So that just came to my mind, the song, and then retrieved the past experience of being with my mother. That's what we retrieved. The song and that experience, these two are linked. These two are very closely linked, so that next time you hear the song, this experience automatically is triggered. So likewise, Lama Tsongkhapa, what he advised us, that if you connect dependent origination with emptiness, you understand dependent origination with understanding emptiness in this life, you try to intertwine the two things so well, then next life, he said that somebody to teach you emptiness is very rare. Very rare that we will meet with teachers who will teach real emptiness. Yet, you will meet with many people who will teach you dependent origination. For example, say, if you go to school, even in school, for example, say the physics, they teach you dependent origination, right? They say that, okay, the world that we are having here is, initially it was because of the Big Bang. How Big Bang? Because of the Doppler effect, right? From the Doppler effect, what we can see, what we experience here is a result. This result came into origination by dependence on the earlier, say the 1 million years ago world. Then there was because of 1 billion years world, the universe. Because of 15 billion years ago is the universe. 15 billion years ago, everything, whole universe is just a tiny dot. Tiny dot known as singularity. Right? So this is how they inferred that from this tiny dot, then by dependence on this tiny dot known as the singularity, from there that whole explosion started, then everything else came to origination, dependent origination. Right? So this is what we learn from physics. And even the physics teacher may not know emptiness, doesn't know emptiness, but he taught a dependent origination. So from this, if this is how the world that we experience today comes into being, then this is empty of independent existence, because it exists by dependence on the Big Bang, right? So you should be, then automatically emptiness experience will be triggered within you. That's what's the benefit of experiencing emptiness automatically. That is the most precious understanding, which alone has the capacity to heal all your problems. So therefore, that experience is so precious, yet people to teach you emptiness, the genuine subtle emptiness, is so rare. And through connecting this experience with the experience of dependent origination, later in your lives, in the later lives, when you meet anybody, when you experience, for example, this flag over there, the flag is moving, fluttering, because of the wind. So the movement of the flag is empty of independent existence, because this is coming into by dependence on the air, the wind, right? Dependent origination. So by seeing dependent origin, automatically you'll be linked to the experience of emptiness. Okay. So there he shared the anecdote. Lama Tsongkhapa shared one anecdote. So this is the advice that he gave in his book, Commentary on R.N. Nagarjuna's text. Anyone who knows the Nagarjuna's text on emptiness, most popular book? Yes, Mula Madhyamika Karika, the fundamental wisdom of the middle way. Fundamental wisdom of the middle way. Eventually, we must be able to study that. Mula Madhyamika Karika, right? Eventually. So first you study a historian's book. What is the title? How to see yourself as you really are. Once you study this, and then see if you can study the Acharya Chandravriddhi's text, which is entry into the middle way. And after studying this, you get a solid ground of what emptiness is. Then try to study Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika Karika. Mula Madhyamika Karika, fundamental wisdom of the middle way. Okay, so there, the commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa. In the commentary, he narrated one anecdote of how that is possible. So once there was a Arahat. Okay, how many of you were Arahat? Okay, anyone who likes to share with us as to what do you understand by Arahat? What do you understand by Arahat? Anyone? What is Arahat? Anyone? Yes, the Aries.
Person who has attained liberation, who has broke free from all mental afflictions, he has attained liberation.
Very good. A person who has already gotten rid of the self-grasping ignorance, and who is liberated from suffering altogether. That person known as Arahat. So the anecdote was that there was one Arahat. The Arahat was giving teachings to some of his students. And what he was teaching was, he was teaching Four Noble Truths. A very simple, in the simplest form of the Four Noble Truths. And so there, Four Noble Truths, okay, suffering, the truth of suffering. What's the second truth? Huh? The truth of the cause of suffering or the origin of the suffering, right? Okay, so the suffering, they come because of our negative thoughts, origination. Then what's the third one? Cessation. If you remove the negative thoughts, then your suffering will cease. The cessation suffering will happen, right? What's next? Path leading to cessation. How to cut this? By depending on the path. By depending on the path to remove these negative thoughts. Okay, so what this Arahat was teaching was something very simple for Noble Truths. Very simple for Noble Truths. On the basis of dependent origination. Dependent origination, 3 levels. He was just teaching the first level. And there was one, say, the wanderer or a practitioner, ascetic wanderer. He was just wandering here and there, and then he saw that this Arahat was giving teaching. So he sat there. While Arahat was not at all teaching emptiness. He was not teaching emptiness at all. He was just teaching the first level of dependent origination. Right? Okay. But some of you may be wondering what is first level of dependent origination? Okay. 3 levels of dependent origination. The first one. What's the first one? Very good. Okay, dependent origination of the results, dependence on the causes. Dependent origination of the results, dependence on causes. Or in other words, causal dependent origination. Causal dependent origination. Dependent origination of the results, dependence on causes. Number 1. Okay, number 2. Okay, very good. Number 2 is dependent origination of the wholes, W-H-O-L-E. Dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on parts. Dependent origination of the wholes, dependence on parts. Okay, I'll quickly explain these. Number 3.
Everything is existing by mere label.
Okay, by mere label, by mere mind, conceptions. Okay, all are correct. dependent origination of dependence on mere mental designation. All three are correct. Dependent origination of dependence on mere